So I've always wanted to have a name that meant something. My name is Vicki, V-I-C-K-I, not Victoria. There's no royal connection to my name. As far as I knew from my parents, there wasn't a family connection to the name. No one really knows how to spell it. My Starbucks name is Serafina. Serafina, it's such a lovely lyrical name, means angel. I love ordering my lattes with that name. I love it when my drink is up and the name is called, and I proudly step up. But when I walk out the door, it's back to Vicki. My full birth name is Vicki Lynn Levy. Vicki Lynn has a little southern look to it, and that's because my dad was from the South, is from the South. He comes from Augusta, Georgia. Augusta is a small city about 3 hours outside of Atlanta, near the South Carolina border, on the banks of the Savannah River. Its claim to fame is it hosts the Masters golf tournament. My father's grandfather, Vyshel Walensky, came to Augusta in the early 1900s. He came over from Poland. He came with his wife and 6 children. And he came over to join his cousin. His cousin was already in Augusta, and his cousin had probably sent word back to the old country that Augusta wasn't a bad place to live in. So together, Vyshel and his cousin were peddlers. They sold clothes out of a pushcart pulled by a donkey on the outskirts of Atlanta in the farmland. After a time, Vyshel decided to change his name from Vyshel Walensky to Vyshel Levy. Why? There's a few stories kicking around in my family, but the one that resonates for me goes like this. Vyshel and his cousin were Orthodox Jews, and as observant Jews, they kept kosher. Now, they would spend long days in the countryside, sometimes even have to stay overnight, and kosher food was hard to come by. So as the story goes, Vyshel got tired of always having to declare himself Jewish, and so he decided to change his name to the most obviously Jewish name he could think of, Levy. Now, I like this story because if it's true, it really contradicts my ideas about what my ancestors felt in this country. I assumed, this story shows that they weren't embarrassed or ashamed or trying to hide their ethnicity or their religion. On the contrary, they were trying to declare it loudly. Fast forward a few years. Vyshel saves enough money to rent a small storefront in downtown Augusta. He calls it Levy's Department Store. Fast forward a few more years. Vyshel's son Sam, his 7th child, the first child born on US soil, inherits the store. Sam Levy was my grandfather. Now, I spent many summers and Christmas vacations hanging out in Levy's department store. It wasn't Macy's, but it was a pretty big step up from a pushcart. Okay. There was the ladies' hat section. There was the glass case where the ladies' gloves and handkerchiefs were sold. There was a rack with men's suits and men's overalls, and then there was the rack with ladies' dusters. You know, those are those zip-up house dresses that Archie Bunker's wife Edith used to wear. The customers at Levy's department store tended to be poor, and in fact, everyone seemed to be struggling. I remember a conversation I once had with a clerk at Levy's, Mrs. Doyle. Mrs. Doyle had a big beehive hairdo with bobby pins sticking out of it and a soft southern drawl. And one day she was telling me about her Christmas holiday spent with her family. And I said, Mrs. Doyle, what did you get for Christmas? And she said, well, I got the usual, 3 brassieres. Now, My family didn't celebrate Christmas, and I wasn't wearing a bra yet, but I did know enough to understand that if there are bras under the Christmas tree, there's probably not a lot left over for luxuries. My grandparents were doing a little better. They lived in a long shotgun house in a nice neighborhood of Augusta. I spent a lot of time in the den of that house playing canasta with my grandmother's card group, while the men played gin rummy in the kitchen. Sometimes we'd sit on the screened-in porch talking at night, listening to the crickets. And a big night out was going to the Sizzlin' Steakhouse. But my grandfather's heart was weak, and he always seemed worried about taking care of his family and how business was going at the store. Sometimes at the end of the day at the store, he'd let my sister and me come with him to the bank, where he would go every afternoon to deposit that day's earnings. He would have us hold out our palms, and he'd put a few coins in them, and he'd take his hand and he'd close our fingers over the coins. And he'd say, "Girls, hold on tight. Hold on to your pennies." One time, a kid who my grandfather had hired to work during the Christmas season in the store stole money from him. That kid happened to be Black. After that, none of the Black employees were allowed to work the cash register. There was a white clerk at Levy's department store, Mrs. Doyle, and there was a Black clerk, Frances. I never knew her last name. Mrs. Doyle waited on the white customers. Frances took care of the Black customers. It seemed perfectly normal to me at the time. Ironically, my grandparents' fortunes shifted when Levi's jeans became popular. Remember Levi's? I wore Levi's or my wide wale corduroys every single day of junior high school until I got my first pair of Jordache jeans in 8th grade. But when Levi's came to Augusta, suddenly teenagers were coming into the store asking for them. Now, Levi's, the name Levi's and the name Levy have nothing to do with each other. They're not even spelled the same way. But somehow customers saw the Levy's name and they assumed they could go there to get their Levi's. So thanks to Levi's, my grandparents were able to save some money, eventually sell the store, and retire. Their 3 sons, including my dad, went on to careers in medicine and dentistry, and they moved from Augusta. My dad did his medical residency up in Boston and met my mom up there, and that's where I was raised. So my memories of the South are really childhood memories. But my memories are full of contradictions and mixed feelings. Some of the things that seemed normal or even funny at the time no longer seem so funny in light of what I understand about the history of the South and racism in this country. On the other hand, some of my judginess about my family mellows out a little bit when I think about how my dad's family started in this country with nothing but a pushcart and a donkey. So I have come to embrace the nuances embedded in my name, Vicki Lynn Levy. My daughter has the middle name of Levy. She was raised here in the Boston area, and next month she goes south to start medical school. I can't wait to see the spin that she puts on the Levy name. Thank you.